Here's the stage that is set for a massive battle. You have the industrials, Tesla, Samsung, whatever, Sony. You have the hedge funds. Oh, they smell blood in the water. Mm-hmm. And now the third and fourth piece to that puzzle, U.S. government just officially lists silver as a critical mineral, putting a floor under the price. And China is now limiting exports moving forward. There is a battle going on, not only to drain the world's exchanges slow enough as to not cut off your nose to spite your face so everything blows up. And now you have governments acknowledging that this is more about policy now, not just national security and policy on top of the battle between the industrials and the investors. It's setting the stage. And when you realize just how small of a market cap silver has, I don't tell people to buy silver to get wealthy, but it has enormous upside if you realize that you start throwing government money into this and putting a floor under it and limiting exports. Yeah, the potential for silver is quite enticing. I mean, you could argue it's parabolic. No, it's funny. It's the United States Geological Survey Commission. It's part of the government. They're also the ones that came out a year ago, maybe, and said that they could see silver being the first element struck from the periodic table of elements. They publicly said that. But yes,
because we're running out of it.
Yes, because it's found in nature in a form called epithermal, like your skin is epidermis. Mm-hmm. The big deposits were found very, very long ago. I was listening to an interview that Keith Neumeyer was giving the other day, and he was saying a lot of the primary silver companies are actually moving more towards being gold mining companies, right, because it's so difficult. Of the 850 million ounces mined last year of pure silver, there was only roughly 20% of that, 170 million or so, that came from companies mining silver. It's so hard to find the deposits because they're right near the surface. The big deposits were found forever ago. So First Majestic, I believe, is the purest of all the silver companies in terms of their just being a silver company. It represents 50% of what they do, but
right,
it's becoming really hard to find, is the bottom line, the big deposits that have already been exploited. So most of what comes to market is byproduct mining of other minerals, and they stumble across it. Yeah, most of our silver comes from Mexico, Peru, and Canada. And it's interesting, I mentioned Mexico and Peru. The Chinese are going right to those miners and saying, we'll pay double what the West will. We want your doré, which are the crudely refined bars. We want your concentrate, which is the byproduct mining sludge. Right. And we'll pay double. We'll send it back and refine it ourselves. Now, this is coming from the second largest producer of silver on the planet. David Morgan will tell you when he went there to tour the mines, China told him we're number one, we're not number two. Whatever they are, they're massive producers of it, and they're flying all around the world to buy stuff and refine it themselves when we almost entirely need silver. When we need silver, it's almost entirely coming from other countries. We are reliant upon it on other countries, and that is a fragile supply chain. It's not a good thing. At the same time, you got China building deep water seaports in Peru and trying to build their infrastructure. I mean, there is a game of chess going on right now that people really aren't seeing, and that game of chess is who can secure all of the world's commodities. Shh, don't tell, do it quietly, don't freak everyone out, but this is a battle of gaining supremacy on the commodities of the world. It's shifting from paper promises by the West into who's got the goods around the globe.
Much of the world's silver comes from Mexico, Peru, and Canada, but the competition to secure it is intensifying. China, already one of the largest silver refiners on Earth, is aggressively purchasing door bars and concentrates directly from Latin American producers, often at above-market premiums. This quiet accumulation campaign signals a strategic objective: control over the industrial metals that support high-tech manufacturing and military development. As China invests in deep-water ports, rail corridors, and mining partnerships across South America, a geopolitical chessboard is emerging, one centered not on ideology, but on securing physical commodities essential for the next century.
They do export, but they are now limiting exports as of, I don't know, within the next month or two. Any silver that leaves the country has to apply for a permit with the government. And they were big exporters. They're not going to export quite the same way because I think it's in response to the moves that the U.S. is making. It's in response to the realization that, you know, they've got, they have a real advantage in having the supplies that they do. And why make it any easier for the U.S. when we're doing the things that we are doing in terms of tariffs and in terms of, you know, trade restrictions and sword rattling, I just saber rattling. I just think that they're smart to do that. And I think it will be a growing trend, but they just did publicly announce that they are going to limit drastically. And they have also characterized it as a matter of national security as well. This is going to be a trend that you will see, a nationalistic trend, I think, as time goes on, as the prices go higher. Let me just read you this one paragraph. China, the world's largest silver refiner, is restricting exports and has announced that starting in 2026, all silver exports will require individual government licenses, effectively giving Beijing full control over every ounce leaving the country. This move classifies silver as a resource of national interest, signaling a strategic shift towards state-managed supply. And then at the same time, you got the U.S. adding it to the critical mineral list. This is no coincidence, and it's a battle for the world's supplies of things that are critical to infrastructure, critical to military, critical to a world that is digital. It is, you need silver to transmit electricity across, you know, long distances. You need silver, and I think that's, you know, for semiconductors and electric vehicles and defense and solar panels and on, I think that's becoming clear.
In 2026, China will begin requiring government licenses for every ounce of silver leaving the country, a shift that reclassifies the metal as a national security resource. At the same time, the United States has officially added silver to its critical minerals list for the first time in history. These parallel decisions reveal a broader shift. Governments are no longer treating silver as a simple raw material, but as a strategic asset. As export controls tighten and Western tariffs reshape global trade, silver's role in infrastructure, defense, semiconductors, and clean energy systems is transforming it into a linchpin of geopolitical power.
Here's the stage that is set for a massive battle. You have the industrials, Tesla, Samsung, whatever, Sony. You have the hedge funds. Oh, they smell blood in the water. Mm-hmm. And now the third and fourth piece to that puzzle, U.S. government just officially lists silver as a critical mineral, putting a floor under the price. And China is now limiting exports moving forward. There is a battle going on, not only to drain the world's exchanges slow enough as to not cut off your nose to spite your face so everything blows up. And now you have governments acknowledging that this, you know, this is more about policy now, not just national security and policy on top of the battle between the industrials and the investors. It's setting the stage. And when you realize just how small of a market cap silver has, I don't tell people to buy silver to get wealthy, but it has enormous upside if you realize that you start throwing government money into this and putting a floor under it and limiting exports. Yeah, the potential for silver is quite enticing. I mean, you could argue it's parabolic.
Silver now sits at the center of a silent tug-of-war. Major industrial consumers, electric vehicle manufacturers, solar panel producers, semiconductor companies are competing with hedge funds and metals investors who see a tightening supply-demand imbalance. Now governments are entering the arena as well, introducing policies that effectively place a price floor under strategic metals. With silver's total market value far smaller than most asset classes, even modest institutional inflows could send prices sharply higher. What was once a monetary metal is rapidly returning to global relevance, driven not by nostalgia, but by its irreplaceable function in a digital, electrified world.
I think absolutely. You know, back then it was money. I mean, silver was used as legal tender.
Right. It actually backed your tender.
Yeah, and I think it went through a period of time where, you know, it was not recognized any longer other than being, you know, a candlestick or whatever. I think that it is becoming, it's re-entering awareness. People are beginning to become aware of its real value. And I think it's a valid point. Yeah, I think it would be silly not to.
Yeah,
I think that's the beautiful part of gold and silver. What can you say long after the bills in your wallet, Adam, are hanging from a frame in the Smithsonian as an example of what used to be?
Right.
Gold and silver that you pass on to your kids that make it on to their great grandkids and their great. In the year 3000, gold and silver will still be money. The currency in your wallet won't be. And I think that's to your point. There are very few things you can pass on to family members that have that intrinsic value. But also great grandfather Adam bought this for us. And the sentimental value is something to be said for that as well.
Gold is reappearing at the center of international finance, and silver is rising alongside it. New vaulting hubs, including Hong Kong and emerging Eurasian financial centers, appear poised to support gold-backed collateral systems that could challenge the dominance of U.S. treasuries. Analysts note unusual activity in Asian metals exchanges, including large movements of physical gold and significant unreported silver stockpiles. Some speculate that a gold-denominated bond could soon be issued offshore, creating an alternative to dollar-based repo markets. If this materializes, it would mark the most significant adjustment in global financial architecture since the 1970s.
Payable to the bearer on demand in silver coin. Same thing it says for the gold certificates that ended in 30. I think the last one they made might have been in 30. Oh, gosh. Well, obviously it would have been after gold was confiscated, maybe 28, 29, or before gold was confiscated. I'm not sure the year, but I have a bunch of them in frames, and they all say payable to the bearer on demand in gold coin instead of in God we trust. There was, and again, you want to get into conspiracy theories. There are a lot of people who think that had something to do with President Kennedy because he wanted to take the power of money creation away from the Federal Reserve, give it back to the Treasury, and issue silver certificates. So it would have been sometime right around his passing that they ended. But it's true. Gold and silver have been money. Now, I don't think we're going back to a system where gold and silver, you could argue maybe in some of the individual states, like Texas and Florida, I think you will deposit your metal into a state-run vaulting system, and they'll give you a credit card or something on your phone. I don't think we're going to go around using gold and silver as money anymore, but I do think it's going to be reintegrated, especially gold, into the monetary system in other ways across the globe. The bottom line is gold and silver are becoming far more important than they have been in a very long time. And I think there is the realization that in a system that is based on trust and nothing else, I think it's past its prime, and people are moving to something that is far more trustless, and it will be some sort of a marriage between blockchain technology and physical precious metals, I think, as a way to reinstill, kind of like they're doing in Kyrgyzstan, to reestablish trust and confidence in the system. And Kyrgyzstan is they're in the Eurasian Economic Union, they're close with Russia, they're close with China. The rails are being built to, I think, use gold or gold-related bonds to take the place of U.S. Treasury bonds. And there's a very interesting theory right now going on between Vince Lancy and Eric Young, and that's exactly what they think is happening right now. That there is a huge spike in warrants on the Shanghai Futures Exchange, and like almost over 100 tons or near 100 tons, but that he believes that and there's also a massive amount of silver that Russia is no longer exporting that hasn't been accounted for, a huge amount, and there's no one knows where it is, of gold that they used to export as far as recently as 2024, and that they believe, along with Russia issuing a yuan-denominated bond next month, that they are going to move it to the Shanghai Metals Exchange vault in Hong Kong, their new vault in Hong Kong. Remember, I've talked to you about how they're building vaults all around the place, but to take gold out of China, it has to go to Hong Kong, that they're moving it there to act as a repo facility. And so to act as a repo facility, that will be an alternative to the U.S. dollar. Now, these guys are cutting edge, Eric and Vince, and I wouldn't discount what they're saying. So any way you look at it, And when I say gold, I mean silver too, but gold has a more prominent role in the workings of the monetary system.
The monetary system. Yeah.
Silver's just been viewed as critical, and and by the people who understand it, they know they need it. But both Vince and Eric think that gold, or a gold-denominated bond, will come out of Hong Kong as part of a new offshore repo collateral system, and that will be a massive blow to the U.S. Treasury market, is what they're saying.
While the United States relies heavily on foreign sources of critical metals, its currency system faces mounting pressures, rising federal debts, growing deficits, and an international push to diversify away from the dollar. Countries appear to be accumulating commodities, gold, silver, energy, agricultural assets, while using strong dollars or dollar-pegged digital instruments to acquire them. This mirrors Gresham's law, exchange weakening currency for durable value while the window remains open. Whether silver returns as money directly or through digital metal hybrids, its importance is surging. In a future where trust in fiat is fading, physical precious metals may again anchor global stability.
It's fair to say, I mean, you look at the Kyrgyzstan stable coin, it's backed 1-to-1 to the dollar because it has the most frictionless rails, if you will. And that there's a point, and I think you would expect to see, if you are going to de-dollarize, I would expect to see a massive increase in dollar use leading up to that. You're taking your dollars, I don't care how what they're pegged to, or if it's a stable coin, and you're using them to buy things, to buy commodities.
So sort of Gresham's law in that example. Hey, let's get rid of the stuff I think's not going to keep its value and hold on to the stuff that will. Yeah.
Yes, and while the rails are being put in place quietly to challenge it, and this is just it. You can't challenge the biggest kid in the schoolyard until you're ready to do so. And I think that's what these countries understand. And so, to Brent's point, yeah, you may see that. I think the milkshake theory is largely very well thought out and accurate, but it has an expiration date. And I think Brent would argue that too, that ultimately it runs out of steam. A currency that is backed by nothing, that is nearly 200 trillion in debt when you throw in the unfunded liabilities. And even if you take all of the wealth in the United States and then add into it the debt of the United States, both public and governmental, getting to the point where there's more debt than there are assets, even in the U.S. Now, I don't think the U.S. is going to default, but they are going to do something. They're going to do something drastic. And
what's the relief valve, right? If you're not going to default, it's eventually got to be the purchasing power of the currency.
That's right. So, and that's how you do it. By buying all of the assets, like gold, like Bitcoin, you are devaluing the dollar, aside from the inflation that we see. And I think that's for sure. So, and Brent, to his point, yeah, I could see that happening as well, a period of time. But I think there will just be more assets purchased with those dollar-based stable coins. And then if you realize that the issuers of those stable coins are buying assets, ultimately it's about foregoing the strength of the economy to support the bond market, which will be backed by those assets and deliverable in those assets in order to reshore manufacturing. I think all of that is valid. I really do.